Captain Eric Mason stood on the bridge of the USS Nightingale, his eyes fixed on the vast darkness of space through the main viewport. Small lights blinked on the control panels around him, casting a soft blue glow across his weathered face. The ship hummed quietly beneath his feet, its systems running at minimal power to avoid detection. They were deep in contested space, territory that the Zalathi Dominion claimed as their own, though humans had been here first. "Status report," Mason said, his voice low but clear. Linda Powell looked up from her navigation console. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform bore the insignia of a lieutenant. "We're maintaining course, Captain." Still undetected by Zalathi patrols. Mason nodded. The Nightingale was not an impressive ship by most standards. Its hull was marked with small dents and scratches, evidence of hasty repairs and years of service. To alien eyes, it would appear outdated, perhaps even primitive. That was exactly what Earth Command wanted. "Sir, I'm picking up signals," said Keith Bennett from the communication station. He adjusted his headset and frowned at his screen. "The Zalathi battle language. Sounds like standard patrol chatter. Can they see us?" Mason asked. Greg Harrison shook his head from the weapons console. "Negative, Captain. Their scans are passing right over us. We might as well be space debris to them." A ghost of a smile crossed Mason's face. The aliens' arrogance would be their downfall. They thought humans were technologically inferior, barely worth acknowledging as a spacefaring species. The Nightingale's exterior was deliberately designed to reinforce that belief. "Sir, Zalathi vessels approaching," Powell announced. 3 patrol ships on an intercept course. "Hold position," Mason ordered. "Let them come to us." The bridge crew tensed as the alien ships grew larger on the view screen. The Zalathi vessels were sleek and predatory, their hulls gleaming with a metallic purple sheen that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the distant starlight. Each was 3 times the size of the Nightingale, armed with energy weapons that could tear through standard human shields in seconds. "They're passing within visual range," Powell said quietly, as if the aliens might somehow hear her. Mason watched as the patrol ships glided past less than 1,000 kilometers away. Close enough to see with the naked eye through the viewport, close enough to destroy the Nightingale with a single volley if they chose. "They're not even scanning us," Powell remarked with a hint of disbelief. "That's the idea," Mason responded, his voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "We're beneath their notice." Below decks, Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez monitored the ship's true heart. Hidden beneath layers of ordinary machinery and false readings was the quantum displacement drive, humanity's most closely guarded technological breakthrough. The drive core pulsed with a soft, almost imperceptible light, contained within fields that prevented any energy signature from escaping the ship. Martinez ran her hand over the control panel, feeling the slight warmth it gave off. 15 years of research, countless failed experiments, and the lives of 3 test pilots had gone into creating this technology. Technology that the Zalathi believed was centuries beyond human capability. "How's our baby doing?" asked a voice behind her. Martinez turned to see Dr. Alan Beck, the quantum physicist who had been assigned to the Nightingale for this mission. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes from too many sleepless nights fine-tuning the drive. "Purring like a kitten," Martinez replied. "Power consumption is within expected parameters and the containment fields are holding steady." Beck nodded, satisfied. "And the weapons system?" Martinez tapped a series of commands into her console, bringing up a diagnostic of the ship's other secret. "The mass driver is green across the board. All 5 quantum-accelerated projectiles are secure and ready for deployment." Back on the bridge, Mason received an encrypted transmission from Earth Command. He retreated to his ready room to review it privately, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the stern face of Admiral Patricia Harris. Her gray hair was cut short, and the lines around her eyes had deepened since Mason had last seen her. "Captain Mason, your orders have changed," she said without preamble. "The Zalathi have destroyed New Haven Outpost. 87 civilian casualties. No survivors." Mason felt his jaw tighten. New Haven had been a scientific research station, unarmed and non-threatening. "The diplomatic channels have failed," Harris continued. "The Zalathi ambassador has returned to their homeworld, and they've cut all communications. Intelligence suggests they're planning a full-scale assault on our outer colonies within the week." "What are our new orders, Admiral?" Mason asked, though he already suspected the answer. Your mission is no longer reconnaissance, Harris confirmed. You are authorized to demonstrate the Nightingale's capabilities. Show them what happens when they attack human settlements. Understood, Admiral. Any specific targets? Intelligence has identified a Zalathi forward command post being established in the Taurus Belt. A significant portion of their fleet is gathered there, planning the next wave of attacks. That's your target, Captain. Mason nodded grimly. And after? After the demonstration, return to Earth space immediately. We expect the diplomatic situation to change rapidly once the Zalathi understand what they're dealing with. The transmission ended, leaving Mason alone with his thoughts. He had known this mission might come to this when he accepted command of the Nightingale. The ship had not been built merely to spy on alien fleets. He returned to the bridge where his crew waited expectantly. They could tell from his expression that something had changed. New orders, Mason announced. We're heading to the Taurus Belt. The Zalathi have destroyed New Haven Outpost. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Several crew members had friends or colleagues stationed at New Haven. Rules of engagement? Harrison asked from the weapons station. We are authorized to use the mass driver, Mason replied. Earth Command wants a demonstration. Powell looked up from her navigation console, her face pale but determined. Course plotted for the Taurus Belt, Captain. ETA 14 hours at current speed. Engage, Mason ordered, and run a full diagnostic on all systems. I want everything at 100% when we arrive. As the Nightingale altered course, Mason gazed out at the stars. The Zalathi had mistaken humanity's caution for weakness. They had pushed and prodded at human space, testing Earth's resolve with increasingly bold incursions. They had ignored diplomatic warnings and violated territorial agreements. Soon they would learn their mistake. The unassuming ship they had dismissed as primitive carried within it the power to change the balance of forces in this sector of space forever, and Mason had been given the authority to reveal that power. They've ignored us long enough, he said quietly, more to himself than to his crew. Time to get their attention. The Nightingale accelerated silently through the darkness, carrying its deadly secrets toward a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human capability. The Zalathi fleet waited, unaware that everything was about to change. 6 months earlier, Dr. Samantha Wood stood in a brightly lit laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The underground facility hummed with energy, as dozens of scientists and engineers worked at various stations around a central testing chamber. Through a window of reinforced glass, Woods could see the prototype of the quantum displacement drive, a device no larger than a microwave oven yet containing technology that would change humanity's place in the galaxy. Director Frank Newman joined her at the window, his expression tense but hopeful. After 15 years of research and more failed tests than anyone wanted to remember, they were finally ready for the critical demonstration. The military delegation is here, Newman said quietly. Admiral Harris is leading them. No pressure, Woods smiled thinly. 15 years of my life went into that little box. I think I'm past feeling pressure. A door opened behind them and Admiral Patricia Harris entered with 5 other high-ranking officers. Their uniforms were adorned with medals and insignia that reflected years of service to Earth's defense forces. They nodded respectfully to the scientists, but their eyes quickly focused on the test chamber. Dr. Woods, Harris said, extending her hand. I hope today brings better results than our last visit. Woods shook the offered hand firmly. The calculations are solid this time, Admiral. We've solved the phase variance issue that caused the previous failure. Let's see it then, Harris replied, getting straight to business. Woods turned to her team and nodded. The technicians began the startup sequence, their fingers moving across control panels with practiced precision. Inside the test chamber, a metal sphere the size of a baseball sat on a pedestal 10 meters away from a reinforced containment box. The principle is simple, Woods explained as the machine powered up. Traditional space travel fights against the laws of physics. We burn enormous amounts of energy to push through space-time, but the quantum displacement drive works differently. It folds space instead of moving through it. A low hum filled the room as the drive activated. Blue light pulsed from within its housing. Watch the sphere, Woods said, pointing to the metal ball. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, without any visible beam or effect, the sphere simply vanished from the pedestal. Simultaneously, it appeared inside the containment box 10 meters away. There was no flash, no sound, no indication of movement. One instant it was in one location, the next it was in another. The military officers leaned forward, their expressions shifting from skepticism to surprise. It works by creating a quantum link between 2 points in space, Woods continued. The object doesn't travel through the intervening space. It exists in both locations simultaneously for a fraction of a second, then resolves to the destination point. And detection? Harris asked, the strategic implications already forming in her mind. Virtually undetectable until activation, Woods confirmed. There's no energy buildup, no radiation signature. Nothing to see until the displacement occurs. And even then, the energy signature is minimal and dissipates almost instantly. One of the other officers, a general with 3 stars on his shoulder, stepped closer to the glass. What about larger objects? Could this move a ship? Woods nodded. That's the next phase. We've been scaling up gradually. The energy requirements increase with mass, but not linearly. Moving a 20,000-ton vessel would require roughly the same energy as powering its conventional engines for an hour. And weapons applications? The general pressed. Woods glanced at Newman, who gave a slight nod. We've developed a mass driver based on the same principles, she answered. It can accelerate projectiles to unprecedented velocities with minimal energy signatures. The kinetic impact is significant. Harris's eyes narrowed. How significant? A titanium sphere the size of this test object, properly accelerated, would impact with the force equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon, but without the radiation. And because it moves through folded space, there's no way to track it or intercept it. A heavy silence fell over the room as the military officers exchanged glances. The implications were clear. With this technology, Earth's ships could strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. How soon can we deploy this? Harris asked. The Nightingale is already being retrofitted, Newman replied. It will be ready for its first mission in 3 months. Back in the present, Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez stood in the engine room of the Nightingale, monitoring the quantum displacement drive as the ship approached the Taurus belt. The drive had performed flawlessly during the journey, maintaining its energy containment and stability. Dr. Alan Beck joined her at the control panel, his eyes scanning the readouts. Everything looks good. We're operating within all safety parameters, Martinez nodded. The drive is ready for combat displacement if needed. We can make one jump, then we'll need 12 minutes to recharge the quantum matrix. 12 minutes is a long time in a firefight, Beck observed. That's why we have the mass driver, Martinez replied. Hit them hard enough and there won't be anyone left to fight. On the bridge, Captain Mason studied the tactical display showing the Taurus belt, a dense field of asteroids that stretched across several million kilometers of space. According to their intelligence, the Zalathi had established a forward command post in the heart of the belt, using the larger asteroids for cover and as raw materials for their operations. Scan the area, Mason ordered. Passive sensors only. Keith Bennett adjusted the settings on his console. Picking up multiple energy signatures, sir. Consistent with Zalathi vessels. I count 7 warships protecting a central command vessel. The command ship is massive, at least twice the size of the others. Greg Harrison whistled softly from the weapons station. That's a lot of firepower. Show me, Mason said. The main view screen shifted to show a magnified view of the Zalathi fleet. The command vessel was indeed enormous, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements and communication arrays. The 7 warships moved in a protective formation around it, their sensors sweeping the surrounding space for threats. They still haven't detected us, Bennett reported, listening through his headset. Their communications suggest they're planning the next phase of their offensive. They're specifically discussing an assault on New Anchorage Colony. Mason's jaw tightened. New Anchorage was home to over 5,000 civilians, including families with children. If the Zalathi attacked there, the casualties would be devastating. We need to hit them now before they can launch that attack, he said. Ms. Powell, bring us to optimal firing position. Mr. Harrison, prepare the mass driver for engagement. Linda Powell's fingers danced across her navigation console. Calculating optimal position now, Captain. The asteroid field will provide us with cover for our approach. Weapons are hot, Harrison confirmed. Mass driver charged and ready. All 5 quantum-accelerated projectiles are loaded and prepared for firing. Mason turned to Bennett. Send an encrypted status update to Earth Command. Let them know we're engaging the enemy. As Bennett transmitted the message, Mason addressed the entire crew through the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage a superior Zalathi force. Our mission is to demonstrate the consequences of attacking human settlements. We will strike quickly and decisively. Stand by for combat maneuvers. The Nightingale moved silently through the asteroid field, its unremarkable exterior concealing the deadly technology within. The Zalathi continued their preparations, their sensors passing over the approaching human vessel without registering it as a threat. They had encountered human ships before and dismissed them as primitive, barely worth the energy it would take to destroy them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Nightingale slipped between two massive asteroids, using their bulk to mask its approach toward the Zalathi fleet. On the bridge, Captain Mason watched the tactical display with intense focus. The enemy vessels continued their regular patrol patterns, completely unaware of the human ship drawing steadily closer. Distance to optimal firing position? Mason asked. Linda Powell checked her navigation readings. 3 minutes, Captain. We'll have a clear line of sight to their command vessel from behind the large asteroid designated Alpha 7. Mason nodded and turned to Greg Harrison at the weapons console. Final weapons check, Mr. Harrison. Harrison's fingers moved across his control panel, running through the pre-firing sequence for the mass driver. All systems green, sir. Quantum stabilizers are functioning at 100%. First projectile is locked and loaded in the chamber. Communication status? Mason asked, glancing toward Keith Bennett. Still no indication they've detected us, Bennett replied. Their comm chatter remains focused on their planned assault on New Anchorage. They're discussing deployment schedules and attack vectors. Mason's expression hardened. The Zalathi were casually planning the deaths of thousands of human colonists, treating it as nothing more than a military exercise. He tapped a button on his chair. Engineering status report. Chief Engineer Olivia Martinez's voice came through clearly. Drive systems nominal, Captain. The quantum displacement drive is ready if we need to make a quick exit. Remember, we'll need 12 minutes to recharge after a jump. Understood, Mason replied. Stand by. He rose from his chair and moved to the center of the bridge, his posture straight and his voice steady as he addressed his crew. In 2 minutes, we will demonstrate to the Zalathi that humans are not to be underestimated. Our first target will be their command vessel. Once it's neutralized, we'll target their supporting warships in sequence. If they return fire, we'll use the asteroid field for cover while the displacement drive recharges. The bridge crew nodded, their faces showing a mixture of tension and determination. They had trained for months for this moment, running countless simulations and drills. Now they would put that training to the test against a real enemy. Approaching optimal position, Powell announced. 30 seconds. Mason returned to his chair. Mr. Harrison, target the Zalathi command vessel. Prepare to fire on my mark. Target locked, Harrison confirmed, his hand hovering over the firing control. The Nightingale emerged from behind the massive asteroid, now with a clear line of sight to the Zalathi command ship. The alien vessel was enormous, its purple-black hull gleaming in the light of the distant sun. It moved with a predator's grace despite its size, surrounded by its escort of warships. They still haven't seen us, Bennett said with a note of disbelief in his voice. They're about to, Mason replied. He took a deep breath and gave the order that would change the course of human-Zalathi relations forever. Fire, Harrison pressed the control. The Nightingale shuddered slightly as the mass driver discharged a single projectile, a titanium sphere no larger than a baseball, accelerated to impossible speed through folded space-time. There was no beam, no visible projectile path, just a silent release of energy that was barely detectable even to the Nightingale's own sensors. 3 seconds passed in complete silence. Then the Zalathi command ship erupted. A blinding flash of light bloomed from its center as the quantum-accelerated projectile struck. The impact released kinetic energy equivalent to a tactical nuclear weapon, tearing through the alien vessel's shields as if they weren't there. The massive ship split apart at its midsection, secondary explosions cascading through its structure as power cores destabilized and weapon systems detonated. On the Nightingale's bridge, the crew watched in stunned silence as the enemy command vessel, which had seemed so powerful and indestructible moments before, broke into thousands of fragments, the debris scattered outward in a rapidly expanding cloud, some pieces striking the nearby escort vessels. Direct hit, Harrison reported unnecessarily. Target destroyed. They're scrambling, Bennett said, listening to the sudden chaos erupting across the Zalathi communication channels. They're trying to figure out what happened. They still don't know it was us. Let's make it clearer, Mason said grimly. Target the nearest destroyer, Mr. Harrison. Target locked, Harrison confirmed after a moment. Fire. Again, the Nightingale shuddered slightly. Again, 3 seconds passed. Again, an alien vessel erupted in a catastrophic explosion. Now the remaining Zalathi ships were moving frantically, shields raised to maximum power, weapons charging as they searched desperately for the source of the attack. They've spotted us, Bennett reported, his voice tense. They're broadcasting warnings throughout their fleet. 5 vessels are moving to engage. Evasive maneuvers, Mason ordered. Ms. Powell, take us deeper into the asteroid field. Powell's hands flew across her controls and the Nightingale banked sharply, accelerating toward a dense cluster of asteroids. Behind them, energy beams from the Zalathi vessel sliced through space where they had been moments before. They're launching fighters, Powell warned, watching her tactical display, 20 small craft deploying from the remaining warships. Mr. Harrison, target the vessel launching fighters, Mason commanded. Target locked, Harrison replied, his voice steady despite the tension of the moment. Fire. The mass driver discharged a 3rd time. Seconds later, another Zalathi warship vanished in a spectacular explosion, taking most of its launched fighters with it. Captain, 2 Zalathi destroyers are attempting to flank us, Powell reported. They're trying to cut off our escape route. Martinez, Mason called to engineering. Status on the displacement drive? 9 minutes until minimum charge, came the response. We can't jump yet, Mason nodded grimly. Then we fight. Mr. Harrison, target the destroyer to port. Target locked. Fire. The 4th quantum projectile found its mark, reducing another alien vessel to expanding debris. The remaining Zalathi ships were now actively retreating, their earlier confidence shattered by the sudden destruction of 4 of their most powerful vessels. Sir, they're broadcasting a general distress signal, Bennett reported. They're calling for reinforcements from all nearby Zalathi forces. How long until reinforcements could arrive? Mason asked. Based on known Zalathi fleet positions, at least 2 hours. Bennett replied after consulting his data. Mason nodded. More than enough time. Mr. Harrison, target the final destroyer. Target locked, sir. Fire. The 5th and final quantum projectile streaked away from the Nightingale. Seconds later, the last major Zalathi vessel erupted in flames and debris. All that remained of the once imposing alien fleet were a handful of fighter craft now fleeing in disarray. The bridge crew of the Nightingale sat in stunned silence. In less than 30 seconds of actual combat, they had destroyed 5 major Zalathi warships without taking a single hit. Status report, Mason said, breaking the silence. All systems functional, Powell reported. No damage sustained. Mass driver is now empty, Harrison added. All 5 quantum projectiles have been deployed. 7 minutes until the displacement drive reaches minimum charge, Martinez called from engineering. Mason nodded. Well done, everyone. Ms. Powell, maintain our position in the asteroid field until the drive is ready. Then set course for Earth space. As the adrenaline of combat began to fade, the reality of what they had accomplished settled over the crew. They had just demonstrated that a single, seemingly unremarkable human vessel could annihilate a Zalathi battle group in seconds. The balance of power in this sector of space had shifted dramatically. Sir, Bennett said, his voice quiet, the Zalathi survivors are broadcasting footage of what happened here. They're warning all their forces to consider any human vessel, no matter how small or outdated it appears, as a potential threat. Mason allowed himself a small smile. Good. That was the point of this demonstration. They ignored us because they thought we were primitive. They won't make that mistake again. The Nightingale drifted silently among the asteroids, waiting for its revolutionary drive to recharge. Soon it would disappear from this region of space as quickly and mysteriously as it had arrived, leaving behind only destruction and a new respect for human technology. The Nightingale emerged from quantum displacement at the edge of human space 12 hours later. The jump had been perfect, with the ship appearing exactly where Linda Powell had calculated, just beyond the outer defense perimeter of the Sol system. Immediately, the ship's communications array detected multiple scan attempts from human defense platforms. Transmitting identification codes, Keith Bennett said, his fingers moving across his console, letting them know we're friendly. Captain Mason nodded, his eyes still on the main view screen where the remains of the Zalathi fleet were visible moments ago. Now there was only the familiar star pattern of home space. The transition had been instantaneous with no sensation of movement. One moment they were hiding among asteroids in Zalathi territory. The next they were light years away in the safety of human space. "We have acknowledgement from Defense Command," Bennett reported. "They're ordering us to proceed directly to Jupiter Station. Admiral Harris is waiting for our report." "Set course, Ms. Powell," Mason ordered. "Standard approach speed." "Aye, Captain," Powell replied, plotting the new trajectory. Mason tapped the intercom. "Engineering status report." Chief Engineer Martinez's voice came through clearly. "The displacement drive performed perfectly, Captain. All systems nominal. We're already beginning the recharge cycle, though I doubt we'll need to jump again before reaching Jupiter Station." "Well done, Chief," Mason replied. The whole crew performed admirably. As the Nightingale moved toward the inner solar system, Mason called a meeting of his senior officers in the ship's small conference room. They gathered around the table, their faces showing a mixture of fatigue and excitement. None of them had slept since the battle, too wired on adrenaline and the magnitude of what they had accomplished. "I want reports from all departments before we reach Jupiter Station," Mason said, looking around the table. "Admiral Harris will want every detail of the engagement." Greg Harrison spoke first. "Weapons performed exactly as designed, Captain. All 5 quantum projectiles hit their targets with maximum effect. The mass driver showed no signs of stress or instability during rapid firing." Linda Powell nodded. "Navigation systems functioned perfectly throughout the mission. The stealth protocols kept us invisible to Zalathi sensors until we fired. Even then they had trouble getting a lock on our position." "Communications were clear throughout," Bennett added. "We captured extensive Zalathi transmissions before, during, and after the engagement. Their panic was evident once they realized what was happening. Their final messages indicated complete disbelief that a single human vessel could cause such destruction." Dr. Alan Beck, who had been quietly observing from the corner of the room, finally spoke. "The quantum theory worked better than we could have hoped. The projectiles traveled through folded spacetime exactly as calculated, making them impossible to detect or intercept. This demonstration proves that the technology is ready for wider deployment." Mason considered his team's reports. 5 major Zalathi warships destroyed in 17 seconds with no damage to our vessel. I'd call that a successful demonstration. The question now is how the Zalathi leadership will respond. "They'll have to take us seriously now," Harrison said with satisfaction. "That was the point," Mason agreed. "But we need to be prepared for any reaction. They might become more cautious or they might lash out in desperation. Either way, the diplomatic situation has changed completely." 3 hours later, the Nightingale docked at Jupiter Station, a massive orbital facility that served as Earth's primary military headquarters in the outer system. Armed guards met them at the airlock, not as a sign of distrust but as an honor guard. Word of their achievement had spread quickly through Earth's defense forces. Admiral Patricia Harris waited for them in the station's main briefing room, along with a dozen high-ranking officers and civilian officials. Her stern expression softened slightly as Mason and his team entered. "Captain Mason," she said, stepping forward to shake his hand. "Congratulations on a successful mission. Your demonstration has had the desired effect." Mason shook her hand firmly. "Thank you, Admiral. The credit belongs to my entire crew, and to the scientists who developed the technology." Harris gestured for everyone to be seated around the large conference table. On the wall screen behind her, satellite images showed Zalathi ships retreating from positions near human colonies. "The Zalathi response has been swift," Harris said, addressing the room. 17 minutes after the Nightingale's attack, all Zalathi vessels began withdrawing from human space. 1 hour later, we received a communication from their high command requesting immediate diplomatic talks. A murmur of satisfaction ran through the assembled officers. "The Zalathi ambassador is already en route to Earth," Harris continued. Their message indicated, and I quote, "a desire to reassess previous understandings in light of new information about human technological capabilities." "They're scared," one of the other admirals commented. Harris nodded. "As they should be. The footage their surviving ships transmitted has been shared throughout their fleet. Every Zalathi commander now knows that even the most unimpressive-looking human vessel might be capable of destroying their largest warships in seconds. What happens now? Mason asked. Now we negotiate from a position of strength, Harris replied. The President has authorized the construction of 10 more vessels equipped with the quantum displacement drive and mass driver technology. The Nightingale will be the template for a new class of ships. Dr. Beck leaned forward. Admiral, with all due respect, we should be cautious about how widely we deploy this technology. Its power comes partly from its secrecy. If the Zelathi or other species learn the principles behind it, they might develop countermeasures. Harris nodded in acknowledgement. Your concern is noted, Doctor. Security around the quantum technology will remain at the highest level. Only a select few crews will be trained to operate these new vessels. The meeting continued for another hour, as Mason and his team provided detailed reports of every aspect of their mission. When they finished, Harris dismissed the other officers but asked Mason to stay behind. When they were alone, the Admiral's formal demeanor relaxed slightly. Off the record, Eric, that was damn impressive work. You've changed the course of this conflict, possibly prevented a full-scale war. We did what was necessary, Mason replied simply. The Zelathi needed to understand that humans aren't easy targets. They understand now, Harris said with a grim smile. The question is what other species will learn from this. The galaxy is watching, Eric. Your demonstration wasn't just for the Zelathi. Mason hadn't considered the wider implications. You think other potential adversaries were monitoring the engagement? We know they were, Harris confirmed. Our intelligence indicates that representatives from at least 3 other spacefaring civilizations have requested meetings with Earth diplomats since news of the Zelathi fleet's destruction spread. They're suddenly very interested in peaceful relations with humanity. Mason nodded slowly, understanding the full impact of what the Nightingale had accomplished. So we've gained respect. Respect, fear, caution. Call it what you will, Harris replied. What matters is that humanity's position in interstellar politics has been significantly strengthened. Your ship and crew will be remembered as the ones who made that happen. As Mason left the briefing room, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The Nightingale's demonstration had been necessary to protect human colonies, but it had also revealed humanity's hidden strength to the galaxy. There would be no going back to being ignored or dismissed. From now on, human ships would command attention wherever they traveled. And that, Mason reflected, was exactly as it should be. 3 weeks after the Nightingale's return to Earth space, Captain Eric Mason stood at the viewport in his temporary quarters on Earth's orbital diplomatic station. Below him, the blue-green planet turned slowly, clouds swirling across its surface. In the distance, he could see the lights of approaching ships as delegations from various alien civilizations arrived for the emergency summit. A chime sounded at his door. Enter, he called, turning from the view. Linda Powell stepped into the room, now wearing the formal dress uniform of Earth's space service with a new lieutenant commander insignia on her collar. Captain, the ceremony is about to begin. Admiral Harris sent me to escort you. Mason nodded, straightening his own dress uniform. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of debriefings, technological assessments, and diplomatic preparations. The crew of the Nightingale had become unexpected celebrities within the military, though the details of their mission remained highly classified from the general public. How's the rest of the crew? Mason asked as they walked through the station's gleaming corridors. Adjusting to the attention, Powell replied with a small smile. Harrison just received his promotion to lieutenant commander as well. Bennett and Martinez are both considering offers to join the development team for the new vessels. Dr. Beck has been closeted with the quantum physics division since we returned. They reached the main assembly hall, where hundreds of officers, officials, and dignitaries had gathered. At the far end of the room, a large screen showed the Nightingale in its dock, surrounded by maintenance crews and engineers studying its revolutionary systems. Admiral Harris met them at the entrance. Captain Mason, perfect timing. The Zelathi ambassador has just arrived. This will be the first formal meeting between our species since the incident. Mason nodded. How are they approaching this, Admiral? With surprising humility, Harris replied. Their initial communications have been respectful, even deferential. Quite a change from their previous arrogance. The crowd parted as they made their way to the front of the hall. Mason noticed representatives from at least 5 alien species watching him, with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed fear. News of what the Nightingale had accomplished had spread quickly throughout the galactic community. President Eleanor Walsh was already at the podium, her silver hair and dignified bearing projecting calm authority. Beside her stood the Zalathi ambassador, a tall, slender being with iridescent purple skin and 4 upper limbs. Its posture, once proud and domineering in previous diplomatic encounters, was now noticeably more reserved. Mason and Harris took their places in the front row as the president began to speak. Today marks a new chapter in relations between Earth and the Zalathi Dominion, Walsh stated, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Recent events have created an opportunity for both our peoples to reassess our understanding of each other and establish a framework for peaceful coexistence. The Zalathi ambassador stepped forward when indicated. Its voice was translated through a small device at its throat. The Zalathi High Command extends formal apologies for recent hostilities against human outposts. We seek a ceasefire and new diplomatic discussions based on mutual respect and recognition of territorial boundaries. Mason listened carefully, noting the careful wording. The ambassador was not directly mentioning the Nightingale or the destruction of their fleet. It was saving face while still acknowledging the new reality. The formal speeches continued for another hour, with representatives from other species also expressing their interest in strengthening ties with humanity. Throughout it all, Mason remained quiet, aware of the occasional glances in his direction. He was the visible symbol of humanity's hidden strength, the captain who had commanded the ship that changed everything. After the ceremony, a smaller reception was held for key military and diplomatic personnel. Mason found himself approached by the Zalathi ambassador, who seemed determined to speak with him privately. "Captain Mason," the alien said through its translator, "I wish to meet you personally." Mason nodded respectfully. "Ambassador, I hope today's discussions lead to lasting peace between our peoples." The Zalathi's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Mason had been briefed meant thoughtful consideration. "Your ship was not what it appeared to be," the ambassador said finally. "We had classified human vessels as primitive, limited to conventional propulsion and weapons. We were wrong. Appearances can be deceiving," Mason replied simply. "Indeed." The ambassador's upper limbs moved in a gesture of acknowledgement. "The Zalathi have existed as a spacefaring civilization for over 15,000 of your years. We have encountered many species, conquered some, allied with others. Never before have we so severely misjudged a potential adversary." Mason remained silent, letting the alien continue. "The ships that survived your attack transmitted images throughout our fleet. One human vessel, appearing outdated and unremarkable, destroyed 5 of our most advanced warships in 17 seconds, without taking a single hit, without visible weapons fire, without being detected until it was too late." The ambassador's voice held a note of something like awe. "Our military analysts still cannot explain exactly what happened." "That's classified information, Ambassador," Mason said calmly. "Of course." The Zalathi made a gesture that might have been a smile. But the demonstration itself was message enough. "If one seemingly primitive human ship can do this, what might your fleet be capable of?" It is a question that has prompted much discussion among the Zalathi High Command. Across the room, Mason noticed Admiral Harris, watching their conversation with interest. He kept his expression neutral. "I hope those discussions lead to peaceful conclusions." "They already have," the ambassador confirmed. "The High Command has ordered all forces to withdraw from disputed territories and respect human boundaries. We seek technological exchange and trade rather than conflict." Mason nodded. "I believe that can be arranged, though certain technologies will remain proprietary." "Understood." The Zalathi bowed slightly. "Your ship has taught us an important lesson, Captain. Never again will the Zalathi underestimate humanity." After the reception, Mason met with Admiral Harris and President Walsh in a private briefing room. The mood was cautiously optimistic. "The Zalathi seem genuine in their desire for peace," Walsh observed. "Their fleet movements confirm their withdrawing from all contested areas." Harris nodded. "And not just the Zalathi. We've received peace overtures from 3 other species that had been testing our borders. No one wants to risk confrontation now that they've seen what happened to the Zalathi fleet." "The Nightingale has bought us time and leverage," Mason said. "But we should use it wisely. If we appear too aggressive now, we might push potential allies away." Walsh agreed. That's why we're proceeding carefully with the deployment of the new vessels. 10 ships with quantum displacement technology, strategically positioned throughout human space, visible enough to serve as a deterrent, but not so numerous as to appear threatening. And the Nightingale? Mason asked. Harris smiled slightly. Being refitted with a fresh supply of quantum projectiles. Once that's complete, you and your crew will be heading back out. There are other regions of space where a demonstration of human capabilities might be beneficial. In the following months, the galaxy adjusted to a new understanding of humanity's place in the interstellar community. Species that had once dismissed humans as barely worth noticing, now approached with respect and caution. Trade agreements were negotiated, cultural exchanges established, and defensive pacts formed. The Nightingale and its sister ships became symbols of human ingenuity and strength. Small, unassuming vessels that moved quietly through space, largely ignored until they needed to be noticed, just as humanity itself had been ignored until it demonstrated its true capabilities. Captain Mason stood on the bridge of the Nightingale once more, watching the stars through the viewport as they prepared for their next mission. The ship had been slightly modified, its systems upgraded, but its exterior remained deliberately ordinary. Course laid in. Captain, Powell reported from her station. Quantum displacement drive ready. Martinez confirmed from engineering. Mason nodded, feeling the familiar hum of the ship beneath his feet. Engage. The Nightingale disappeared from Earth space, folding through the quantum fabric of reality to emerge light years away. No flash, no streak across the stars, just there one moment and gone the next. A fitting metaphor, Mason thought, for humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. They had been ignored until they couldn't be ignored any longer. And now the galaxy would never make that mistake again.